tan solo me hubiera mantenido un poco más sano. X. Espera, yo estaba viendo un vídeo. ¡Ta madre!
Cuando yo hablo de gestión full stack en PageMedia.
Chinga. Sí, ya.
Yo no estoy hablando de saber un poco de todo. Yo hablo de poder conectar PageMedia con data, producto, ventas y creatividad. En este evento vas a ver cómo estos mundos.
The image of the ancient manuscript tome containing esoteric and magical secrets is a commonplace from medieval tales all the way down to contemporary stories of the occult and horror novels. But when most of us imagine such a volume, we conjure to mind perhaps something a bit like this, a copy of Trithemius' Stenographia, a European or Middle Eastern volume filled with scrawled Latin or Arabic curious sigils and strange strings of an unknown language. But the few surviving manuscripts of the Americas are important in that they too contain esoteric wisdom, specifically for the complicated timings of celestial bodies and their dire importance upon our world. And indeed, the oldest known surviving American book contains complicated calculations and seemingly grim predictions for the various phases of Venus, in both its appearance as evening and morning star, but also the period when the planet is invisible during superior and inferior conjunctions. What can we learn about the Mayan worldview and their astrological beliefs from this oldest American book? Make sure to subscribe here to Esoterica for weekly explorations of topics in esoteric history. And if you'd like to support the work of providing evidence-backed, free, and accessible content like this episode, then I'd hope you consider checking out our Patreon or some of the cool merch that we have available on the channel. If you're new to the study of esotericism and you want to get a reliable lay of the land of the literature, make sure to check out my study guide. And if you're actually interested in historical books of the occult and the mystical, like this copy of Trithemius, check out our rare bookstore at Esoterica Rare Books. You can find all those links in the pinned comment and in the description below. But now, let's turn to the oldest known American book, the Codice Maya de Mexico, and the esoteric and deadly portents brought by the appearance of the planet Venus in those pages. I'm Dr. Justin Sledge, and welcome to Esoterica, where we explore the arcane in history, philosophy, and religion.
El arcano. La clase arcana. Puta. ¿Por qué, güey? ¿Qué ganan, neta? ¿Qué ganan?
If you've ever wondered what the icon for this channel represents, it's actually a Mayan hieroglyph for the sound tzak, which means something like to conjure a mystical vision. Years ago, I was actually planning to visit the region in the Yucatan and was in the process of learning to read some of the Mayan hieroglyphs because that's what kind of nerds we are around here. And I was learning to read some of them and come across the glyph tzak, literally mean hand grasping a fish, which simultaneously means to conjure a mystical vision. It's very often in the context of the bloodletting rituals of which some envision serpents as beautifully represented on the lintels at Yaxchilan. The glyph struck me as exceptionally beautiful because the image of the hand grasping the fish is a wonderful image for the evanescent nature of the mystical vision. The fish slips through the hand just as the vision and the blood smoke is dissipating just as quickly as it rises up from the brazier. This tzak glyph captures what I find to be perhaps one of the most interesting and fascinating aspects of the esoteric dimension of religion and philosophy. That as quickly as one grasps it, as much as one ever really does, it's always already slipping away. And I can just think of no more beautiful symbolic expression of this notion of the Tzak glyph to represent the world of esoterica. Hence, the glyph becoming the icon for the channel, born out of my amazement of such a beautiful linguistic sign, but also out of a deep respect for the extreme spiritual athleticism taken on by the Maya religious culture. And if you want to learn a little bit more about this Mayan bloodletting mysticism, make sure to check out my episode on just that topic. Whereas Mesoamerica is often associated with human sacrifice, in the case of the Maya, that sacrifice was overwhelmingly the sacrifice of themselves, auto-sacrifice. So again, make sure to check out that episode. But in this episode, I want to turn to another and perhaps even more famous element of Mayan religion and esotericism, their complex calendrical system, especially that system as it captures the cycles of the planet Venus in the oldest known American book, the Códice Maya de Mexico, which I'll just call the CMM. But to start, only four Mayan books are known to survive. 3 named after the European cities in which they're now housed, the Madrid, Berlin, and Paris codices, along with the only codex still in its region of origin, the CMM. Let that sink in for just a minute. From a civilization represented by thousands of cities spanning centuries of development, only 4 books survive. Of course, that's due to the collapse of the mass urban areas, though the Maya as a people didn't vanish or any such nonsense, with millions still living and speaking various Maya languages in the region, and in fact, still making use of the traditional calendrical system, as we'll see. They are also the victim of the humid environment of Central America, which ravages organic material. But of course, also there's just the colonial destruction of unknown numbers of manuscripts. The most famous and infamous incident of this was by Friar Diego de Landa on July 12, 1562, along with the continued and ongoing cultural suppression of indigenous peoples in the region, have all resulted in a nightmarish paucity of Mayan cultural wisdom in written form. However, with the decipherment of the Mayan script, despite the Cold War challenges that got in the way of that process, we are at least now in a position to appreciate and understand these handful of volumes that thankfully have survived. While books from the Oaxaca and central Mexico regions used animal hides as a base for their books, others, like the CMM, were made from a base paper prepared from the inner bark of the fig tree, alternatively layered and folded and then coated in a white layer of gesso. The writing surface for the CMM is made of calcium sulfate, basically plaster of Paris, while other manuscripts that we have are employed calcium carbonate. Unlike the scroll or the codex, and many much more like the books of Southeastern Asia, Mayan books were folded accordion style, with the CMM composed of 10 surviving pages of rectangular sections of about 12.5 centimeters, with a probable another 10 or so lost. This paper is known as Amato paper in Nahuatl and Amate in Spanish and Hun in Mayan, and it was highly praised in classical Mexico and Central America, with the Triple Alliance, or the Aztecs, demanding thousands of pages of this paper as tribute from conquered foes. Paper acted as tribute. It was that value. Further, it was and is of a special value in the religious settings where it would be splattered with rubber, oils, and especially royal blood before being burned in those rituals which would elicit mystical visions, the Tzak vision of the vision serpent. Such books were highly skilled productions involving the application of various skilled crafts, which is in the rest of the world in the preparation of things like paper, and they were thus elite prestige items. And that's before all of that highly skilled knowledge was written upon that paper with various pigments, most famously Mayan blue. Interestingly enough, the CMM actually reveals a bit about its production. Faint draft lines in red show that the text was probably first drafted and then by a secondary scribe. Though that secondary scribe wasn't exactly following precisely all the lines, revealing something of the history of the construction of the volume. Further, it isn't clear if either draftspeople were also responsible for the scribal work in the volume. Thus, this volume was likely the result of multiple hands, from the production of the paper all the way to the writing, much like paper and writing in many other parts of the world. But what do we know about the origins of the book itself? Sadly, very little. It probably dates to the 11th or the 12th century, thus sometime around the decline of Chichen Itza as a regional power, thus toward the end of the post-classical period. And it was likely looted from a cave along with some other items somewhere in the region of either northern Chiapas or Tabasco in the 1960s, where it was then acquired by Josue Sáenz before being displayed at the Grolier Club in New York. It was actually previously referred to as the Grolier Codex in the early 1970s, before being repatriated to Mexico and subsequently donated to the state. To my knowledge, it's currently on display, or has been in the past. I'm not sure about its current display status, but hopefully it will be in the future, and I would love to make it to Mexico City to see it in person. However, since its discovery, debate has raged about the authenticity of the volume, often driven by rival Mayanists, J. Eric Thompson and Michael Coe. However, after extensive scientific, artistic, linguistic, and astronomical analysis of the text, it has